the Software Process and Measurement Cast number 722. We're back with new content this week. The bears did not eat us as we tracked in 3 national parks. We did see bears, but kept a respectable distance from them. Today, SPaMCAST 722 features an interview with Scott Showalter, Agile Career Accelerator. We discussed the definition of an Agile coach. Building on that definition, we wrestled with how to scale the business of Agile coaching. Note, I mispronounced Scott's name at the beginning of the interview. Rather than re-record the faux pas, it triggered a great story, so I left it in. Scott is an active enterprise coach working in the trenches with executives and leaders at a Fortune 10 organization. And what he has learned throughout the journey of his career is that what feels impossible only becomes achievable once we shift our perspective. Scott has a passion for helping people design, grow, and automate their products and their lives so that they can focus on what's truly important and have a greater impact on this planet. He coaches IT professionals and entrepreneurs on income growth and career advancement. And on the weekends, he's been known to perform laugh-out-loud stand-up comedy. Are you ready to accelerate your Agile career? It's time for the interview. Scott Showalter.
Showalter.
Yeah, and I knew that, right? So,
yeah, which actually stands for reveal change. Showalter, if you break it up. So okay. I'm meant to be a change agent, apparently.
Excellent. Oh,
my God-given destiny.
Well, there you go. That's planning. So you are an Agile Career Accelerator. Is that sort of like the pedal on the floor? Before we dive into the real stuff, what the heck's an Agile Career Accelerator?
Yeah. So this is a company I founded a couple years ago with the vision of just helping these interesting people called Agilists to advance their career, earn more income, live a better work life, that sort of thing. So this is actually our 2-year anniversary this month. So
congratulations.
Most companies don't last 2, 3, 5 years. So I'm excited that we are growing. And it's been an interesting journey. We unlocked over $1 million in pay increases for Agile coaches last year. And my big, hairy, audacious goal is to take that to 10 million. So
wicked. So what is an Agile coach? I mean, that's a loaded word.
It is. There's actually several definitions. At the core, they're change agents. They work with software organizations and really now any product organization. We're starting to even see Agile coaches just work with non-traditional non-product teams, such as human resources, which I do not like that word resources. I like the word humans, though. So it's interesting to see how far it's come. And it actually, the whole Agile methodology stems from this meeting that happened way back in 2001 where some software guys came together and said, we think there's a better way of doing software. So they came together and they forged like 12 principles and several values that they thought defined this Agile way of working. And as they say, the rest is history, but that history is very convoluted. So now there are different types of coaches. So you've got process coaches that help teams and organizations refine their process, improve their delivery of value, and all the metrics associated with that, such as lead time, cycle time, throughput, how much work are we able to deliver, how much value are we able to deliver. You've got the technical coach, or what you sometimes hear as like a software craftsmanship coach. And that type of coach will come in and help the team do better ways of working with the code and with delivery pipelines and things like that. I actually just hopped off an interview. I work for Ford Motor Company and we interviewed a technical coach. So that was interesting. And then there's actually this kind of new hybrid type of Agile coach that is centered more around product and the value that is intended to be delivered with product. And so they're working more at the leadership level, like coaching leaders who oversee teams, product teams, like teams of teams even. At Ford, we call this product groups and product lines, to do things like discover where more value might be hiding. Because a lot of software historically has been, we think this is what needs to be delivered. Let's go do this thing and deliver the thing. And that couldn't be a worse way to work, right? So Agile, one of the core principles of Agile is like we deliver working tested software in as little amount of time as possible, and then get feedback loops going to understand, is this really what the customer wants? So product coaching is taking that to the next level to say, well, there's all these things we could do. Let's not just focus on one thing and then push it out there and see if it's valuable. Product coaching takes that step back and says, of all the things we could possibly do, where is the most value hiding? Then let's deliver those things.
You just rattled off 3 different kinds of coaches. Is the whole idea of an Agile coach, is it just getting a little overdone? Are we not really just talking about business coaching in essence, or are we talking about something else?
It's a great question. At the end of the day, a business won't survive if they're not delivering value of some sort. The marketplace exists as an exchange of value. So we have to understand what is it that the market wants and what they're willing to pay for. And a lot of software has come about because of some pain in the system somewhere, wherever they're, whatever teams of the past dealt with problem-wise, and said, oh, this is a painful problem, we need to solve it. And we think software or product or whatever the case may be is going to solve that pain. And so this goes decades into the past. And that's why, obviously, what existed to solve problems with software decades ago isn't what exists now. I mean, it's like, you think of older languages like COBOL, and I have coached COBOL teams. It was a very interesting experience. But like, that stuff still exists, but it was way different. It was a lot more limited back then. And what you can do with it now, you can do more of practices like test-driven development, where we are actually building the business case test to make sure that the software we're writing is actually producing what we've been asked to deliver, and that we can always run that test from now until eternity to make sure that that piece of code continues to deliver that value. But technology has come such a long way that there's been some transformation projects exist to modernize the technology that we're using. So sometimes that's something that a coach will come in and help a team modernize and really like find that balance of, how do we continue making sure that this product stays doing what it's supposed to be doing as we modernize it. So it's that tedious balance of we need to support this thing, but we need to modernize it, or we need to support this thing, but also make it, capable of doing something new, things of that nature. Finding where our bottlenecks are with respect to like software downtime and things that impede the ability to have that value continuously be available for the customer, things like that. So
it makes sense. Scott, coaching, is this a job, or is this a career? Is this just a step along the path to becoming CTO? Will there be 70-year-old coaches some point that have been coaching since they were 20?
There already are 70-year-old coaches. And I talk to people a lot, and they're like, I'm never going to retire. Coaching is one of those things where it really is quite enjoyable because you're changing not just how organizations deliver the software, but you're also changing hearts and minds along with it and building relationships. And there's a lot of metaphors for what a coach can be. One of the ones that I've heard a lot is, you know, Mary Poppins or Nanny McPhee, where it's like, I'm here, you don't want me. But when you want me, I'm not here anymore. So a coach exists to, it's something we say a lot in the industry. A great coach will coach themselves out of a job, basically. So the good news is that there's a lot of coaching work, there's a lot of transformation work. And if you see it as a job, I'm cautious to believe that that's the end all be all. I believe it absolutely is a career. Agile in itself is this bubble of several different roles, not just coaching. Coaching, typically, like I don't like to think of Agile as like a hierarchy or anything, but typically it's seen as a Scrum Master will come in. They're kind of like the team facilitator. They help the team plan. They help the team make their commitments and things like that. And they're embedded with that team for teams that are doing Scrum. If teams are doing Kanban, sometimes it's called a Flow Master, but basically they're like a software team facilitator. And then an Agile coach is usually seen as the next step up of like they're external to the team. They might be coaching multiple teams at the same time. Sometimes Scrum Masters will do multiple teams too. But like typically there's that progression of, okay, I want to have more impact. So I'm going to go from Scrum Master to Agile Coach. You've got people like me who were in software, also in design. I have experience as a UX designer that makes what I do really interesting because I see transformations as products, and everything in that journey of change becomes an experiment, as if I'm UXing our ability to deliver value, to use UX as a verb. So absolutely it's a career, and it can also be an opportunity to grow as a consultant, right? So you've got your Scrum Master, there's other Agile roles like product owner or product manager. Some people might debate whether product manager is a role, and yes, there is a difference between product management and project management, right? One's dealing with time, the other product management is about like, why are we doing this? It's more in tune with that product delivery of like, what's the right thing? What's the most valuable thing we could deliver of all the possible things we could deliver? You've also got, there's a role called RTE, Release Train Engineer. So there's safe, organizations out. Yeah, there's organizations out there trying to scale Agile across the organization. And I'm not going to get into that because we could be here for a week. But basically, they're facilitating teams of teams of teams at that point. The reason I've focused solely on Agile coaches is because that's the role that I see as being scalable. So if you're someone who wants to scale your income and your impact, you have to stop seeing Agile coaching as a job or maybe even as a career and start seeing it as an opportunity to grow and have more impact and possibly even build your own consultancy. So Agile coaching, I believe, is the only scalable Agile role where you can scale to $500,000. You could scale to $1 million, 2 million, 10 million, whatever you want. Like if you're Deloitte, it's 50 billion a year. Agile coaching is that vehicle, in my opinion.
So to scale it up, to accelerate, let's say, just add certifications, add more frameworks, so that you have, a nice sort of alphabet salad after your name.
Yeah, that is a common misnomer in the industry. And this is coming from someone who became an Agile coach with no experience and 0 certifications. So I'm kind of the poster child for the fact that you don't need certifications. Someone posted a picture. This was a few years ago, but someone posted a picture, and it was military people, not U.S., but some other nation, and that like their whole entire uniform was just absolutely covered in metal and colors from all of the accolades and awards that they received in their military duties or whatnot. And that was kind of seen as the here's what you look like if you have that alphabet soup after your name. You don't need certifications. What you need is demonstration. You need to be able to demonstrate your ability to create change, to do that work of changing hearts and minds and the value streams of product delivery inside of organizations. If you can talk the talk, like that's all you really need. Yeah, I'm not saying that there's no value. There's absolutely value a lot of times in obtaining a certification, but do it not for the letters after your name. Do it for the learning that would come from that. And also keep in mind there's a lot of instructors out there teaching certifications who are not in the trenches doing this work day in and day out.
Yeah. Well, and there are people who are really good at taking tests, and therefore just because you have a certification, even
Yep.
if the person teaching it has been in the trenches and is phenomenal, doesn't mean that you have the muscle memory to recognize or to react or the context. We have a world where if one were to go and read job descriptions and things like that, almost everyone requires things like certifications. How would you counsel someone who had some degree of certifications but needed to extend themselves? How would they accelerate?
The first thing I would do is this is one of the first things I tell my clients, my private coaching clients, is stop looking on job boards for opportunities, right? It's part of that mindset of this isn't a job. Like, let's move beyond that mindset and into one where there is an abundance of opportunity out there that doesn't require you to spend every waking moment of your day hunting down what is essentially the dumpster of job opportunities. And I say that because what you see on job boards is only 20% of what's out there. And there's a reason that those, not every time, but a lot of times what you'll see is those jobs there because no one else wanted them. So I always have you question whether you want to be working in an opportunity like that. Usually those are red flags, right? We require this certification, that certification. Like usually that's one, it's a red flag of anti-patterns in the industry that's gonna, if you're a real coach who wants to have a real agency over the transformation, you're not gonna have a lot in those kind of roles. So you need to go out and find your own opportunities.
I run across people who say Agile coaching or coaches, community, we support each other, all of that good stuff. I would argue that it's at best frenemies, that it's very little community. Agile coaching, is it a community or is it a loose association of people?
I think my answer would be to question that. Like, what evidence are you seeing that it's loose communities or even frenemies? Like, what led you to that conclusion?
I don't see other coaches outside of those working on, let's say, an account together, actually spending time and effort communicating. You see it in pockets, obviously, but you see a lot that are extremely standoffish and very closed on discussing something that they might consider their own IP. They brand it. Everything becomes its own special framework, and we wrestle over words. That's my word, not your word.
Yeah, so there are definitely those pockets, right? There are coaches who are extremely passionate about helping people. There are these communities inside the bigger community where they meet once or twice a week or once a month. Like you see a lot of agile meetups, agile coaching meetups, things like that. A lot of people that attend conferences are part of a greater community. And there's a sense of community on LinkedIn as well. And this concept of sharing our ideas with each other. And then there are definitely those pockets of coaches who, as you said, are standoffish. I do see that, and when I do see that, it makes me question, like, are you really a coach? Are you really that passionate about people, or are you just are, are you maybe just so stressed out in your coaching work that it translates that way to, when you communicate with others, things of that nature? There absolutely is a branding aspect of this. You have to be seen as unique in the market in order for, to attract clients to you, to be seen as the only possible person that can help. And part of that is having your own, what I call a model of how you would, you know, frame the work that you do. And, that's just part of the industry. If you are consulting, if you're building your own consultancy, for example, you have to have kind of your own model of how things work and get people bought into that as being the only way. And I say this tongue in cheek because, one of the things I say is there's only one right way to be agile. And everyone listening to this right now is probably thinking, that is so not agile, Scott. What the heck? You're a madman. There is only one right way to be agile. And that's to figure out what works best for that team or that organization, which means there's an infinite number of ways to be agile. You have to figure out what works in those contexts given those needs. And so a model, a framework, it's just a starting point. It should be flexible enough that it can adapt to a complex adaptive system such as software in the world that we coach. So that's kind of my take on that. Like, you need the model, you need to sell people. Also, there's this idea that you can be successful challenging people. Like, sometimes leaders need to be challenged in a healthy way. And so that's sometimes taken to, you might see a social media post where someone is, and I would never advocate for this, but they're completely flaming some idea or concept. They've completely gone contrarian and flipped what everyone has already bought into on its head, and they're looking at ways that that thing might not be true, or they're trying to shoot as many holes in it as they can. That's just them trying to stand out. Like, there's healthy contrarianism, like getting people to question by saying things that could be seen as provocative, right? You want to do that. You want to have a healthy dose of that. But I wouldn't take it too far. Like, you don't want every single thing you say on LinkedIn, for example, to be like contrarian, because that's just going to turn everyone off. So you have to have a balance.
I do find the greatest changes are generally in people's closest held beliefs because they've stopped thinking about them. Regardless, Scott, you woke up tomorrow morning, somebody handed you your favorite caffeinated beverage of choice and said you had the power, magic wand, and the power to change any two things that affect people's career as coaches. What would those two things be and why?
I guess for me, that depends on the context. If it's inside the realm of, helping people grow as an agile coach, it's going to look differently than me as a coach myself inside of an organization. So which of those two do you want to go down first?
Pick one. Whatever works for you.
So how about one for each?
Fine. That'll be good.
Cool. So as a coach, I see a lot of over reliance on metrics. And what I would love to see is less reliance on tools and metrics and more reliance on, discovering where that value is hiding. That's the number one passion of mine, is helping leaders, teams see a grander vision for what's possible. And, I use the metaphor of a mountain range. Like, we may be on this small mountain and it may seem like a pretty sizable mountain, but until we scale it, we can't necessarily see what all the other possibilities are. But technology exists, such as prototyping and lean experimentation, where in a matter of 3 days rather than 6 months, we can send out an experiment, send out a test to the market and understand. We could do that with multiple things. I'm actually writing a book on this.
Oh, cool.
It's called Happier Paths, and it's about how we as organizations can find greater value by doing more discovery work, more experimentation, things of that nature. So it's kind of like we're, instead of scaling this mountain that looks kind of big, but in reality actually isn't compared to the other peaks around it, we could send up a drone. Like the prototype, the experiment is like sending up a drone to say, hey, which of these mountains are worth scaling? So that's my dream. That's my vision for organization. And my current dream for Agile coaches out there is to wake up and realize that, we can have more impact. And part of that is by first believing that we can increase our income. One of the value propositions of the Agile Career Accelerator is we help you double your income, which sounds impossible. It sounds like I would be skeptical if I heard it, 2 years ago. And I was skeptical. Even when it happened the first time, I was skeptical that it wasn't just a fluke. But when it happened a second time, that's when I stepped back. So 2 of our clients inside the Agile Career Accelerator doubled their income. So I stepped back and I began to look at, okay, this can't be a fluke because it's happened twice. What are the patterns that we're seeing? What are the behaviors that they're doing differently than everyone else that we can then make repeatable so that anyone who wants to double their income as an Agile coach can do so? Since that time, I've doubled my income, and I've discovered 3 and working on a 4th way to double your income as an Agile coach. So, but what I'm finding out there in the industry is that a lot of people are very comfortable where they're at income-wise. They're content, they're happy, and I think we have to challenge that, because if we're going to create more change, whether it's in the greater world or even in our world, right? We can change the world, but sometimes that requires us to invest in certain things, to invest in additional skills, to improve our ability to unlock potential in others. So I really see the contentedness of being happy with where you're at income-wise as a limiter. It limits your ability to invest in yourself, to go and enjoy a conference without having to worry about your organization paying for it, and building relationships in that community. So to bring it back to what you said earlier, that we can actually become a better community, a grander community together rather than just pockets. So I really see it as a disservice to say that I'm happy with where I'm at income-wise, because it really limits coaches. So that would be my magic wand, is like change that mindset. We're working on it.
Scott, how would people continue the conversation? How would they find out about you and your organization?
Yeah, well, there's a couple ways you can reach out to us. agilecareeraccelerator.com is our website. We got a few things up there, but you can also find me on LinkedIn or Twitter. My handle is Scott Rageous on Twitter. And it's actually the same on LinkedIn. But if you search for Scott Showalter with one W, you will find me on there as well. We've also got a YouTube channel that we are spinning up. So if you search for Agile Career Accelerator on YouTube, you should find us on there as well.
Scott, when's the book coming out?
It's actually already published, and we use LeanPub, so you can publish an incomplete book on there.
Yeah.
And so it's on there, Happier Paths.
Okay.
And then eventually we'll have a website, happierpaths.com.
I will have a link in the show notes to all of that, and didn't know about the book before we started. So absolutely. So listeners, go out, take a peek, and I think most of the folks that I know understand LeanPub, but if you don't, holler and we'll get you there. Scott, this has been fantastic. I think, as you know, at the end, I open up the platform for you to promote anything that you'd like. Platform's yours, 2 to 3 minutes.
Cool. Yeah, I don't think there's anything I feel the need to promote. Just, one of the things, maybe it's the mindset, right? I tell the story of Captain Ron. You may or may not know of Captain Ron, but, he was a guy off the Florida Keys, and he had heard that there was sunken treasure somewhere down there, and he was intent. He had his heart set on finding it, and he got his friends bought in, his wife, because he truly believed that it was there. And they weren't finding it. A year would go by, his friends gave up. I think his wife ended up giving up at some point too, but he never gave up because he believed that that treasure was there. And eventually he found that treasure. And I think that's the mindset that we have to have as Agile coaches if we're going to earn more income, if we're going to exceed that $250K a year or $400K a year or even $1 million a year. We have to first believe that it's possible. That's the only starting point to actually getting there. Otherwise, you never will.
Thank you for spending time with the Software Process and Measurement Cast listeners.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having
me. In Reread Saturday News, during the last few weeks, I have read and reread Chapter 9 of Coaching Agile Teams by Lissa Atkins numerous times. The chapter, titled Coach as Conflict Navigator, talks about the value and danger of conflict. What stuck with me was the model of levels of conflict and how at a certain point there can be no constructive outcome. Teams aside, scary thoughts for the world we live in. Links in the show notes to this week's installment of Reread Saturday and all previous installments in the reread of Coaching Agile Teams. Quick advertisement. Controlling work entry requires preparation and knowledge building to establish a path to control work entry. Magic wands are not normally available, which is why Jeremy Willits and I have developed a work entry workshop. We recently delivered the workshop at the 2022 Path to Agility in Columbus to rave reviews. Interested? Email us at tcagley@tomcagley.com or willitsjm@gmail.com. In the SPaMCAST 723, we will feature an essay on neglected WIP. Work that's been started and is now just sitting around is neglected, and neglect is not good. We also have a visit from John M. Quigley and his Alpha and Omega product development column. If process improvement is a never-ending journey, why do so many people ask, are we there yet?